Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Gilda Evans, bringing you the Autism Resource Podcast. This podcast and the Autism Resource Project website are your one-stop knowledge and resource base for autism and much more. I'm very happy to have Jeff Pearson join me as my guest today. Jeff is a speaker, author, business owner, and TV host. When Jeff was 2 weeks old, it was confirmed that he had hydrocephalus, and he went under his first brain and abdominal surgeries. Over the years, he has had many similar surgeries, each with its own set of challenges and victories. Despite those challenges, he traveled the world, got married, raised 3 children, worked as a private investigator, and is now the owner of Hydro with Hope, the host of the TV show Invisible Condition on 3 East. Let me say that again. Oh my God. I'm going to start that whole thing over again. See, even I screw up.
There you go.
All right. Jeff is a speaker, author, business owner, and TV host. When Jeff was 2 weeks old, it was confirmed that he had hydrocephalus, and he underwent his first brain and abdominal surgeries. Over the years, he has had many similar surgeries, each with its own set of challenges and victories. Despite those challenges, he traveled the world, got married, raised 3 children, worked as a private investigator, and is now the owner of Hydro with Hope and the host of the TV show Invisible Condition on E360 TV. It's a show that brings awareness to all the medical conditions millions of people deal with that aren't visible from the outside. Through Hydro with Hope and his TV show, Jeff spreads the message that first, you are not alone. Second, there is hope. And third, there is a community of help and resources out there for you. Welcome, Jeff, and thanks so much for taking the time to join me and discuss the work that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gilda. I appreciate the opportunity. This is awesome.
So, to start with, tell me, what is hydrocephalus?
Hydrocephalus is a condition that is ridiculously common, more common than anybody gives it credit for, that I was born with. And hydrocephalus occurs when there is a blockage in one of the ventricles, or that was in my case, it presented itself as a blockage in one of my ventricles. And so the cerebral spinal fluid that your brain produces all day, every day is a continuous process, was not able to drain properly from the brain. And so it needs to do that. It produces about a quart a day, and normally it would just drain down those ventricles and go down the spinal column, reabsorb into the body, and the cycle continues. But those of us, like what I had happened to me, one of those ventricles was blocked. And so the fluid started to collect. And when it collects enough, given enough time, it can swell the skull, compress the brain, and eventually end in death if you don't catch it in time. And so it can be urgent. For me, it was caught at my 2 week checkup. They did the head measurement, and they do all the measurements at birth, and then they do it again all at the 2 week checkup and compare. And thankfully, they were paying attention very well, and saw that my head measurement was just a little bit off. And so so typically what they do is they'll put it what's called a shunt. They'll install a shunt, which entails drilling the hole in the skull and then threading a little catheter through there to access the fluid, and then attaching the shunt to it, and attaching the cord to the end of the shunt so that it can kind of reroute that fluid to somewhere else in the body. It's kind of like an artificial ventricle they're putting in there to compensate for the fact that one of them was blocked. So that was thankfully done swiftly and well done at 2 weeks old for me, and so I'm still here.
Wow. Well, yes, thank goodness they caught it that early. So you've been dealing with this basically your whole life. What was it like growing up with that condition?
Growing up with it for me was not really a big deal. I know everybody's story is different. I know everybody has a totally unique experience with this condition, but for me, I by the grace of God, I think I made it out pretty well. And growing up, I had the surgery at 2 weeks old initially, and then I had one a few months later, about 6 or 7 months old, and then I didn't have to have another one until 18. And then I had a really nice long break of 18 years and have had four in the last 10 years. But growing up was very normal. I mean, I had lots of surgeries for other things and related to the hydrocephalus, but my parents were so good at making it not the main event. It was like, okay, it was really a non-event. We really didn't talk about it much because it wasn't an issue. I didn't really have very many issues with the surgeries and with the hydrocephalus itself. I was very fortunate in that. And so growing up was very, very normal. I mean, my parents did gently steered me away from things like football and soccer and things where you're literally banging your head against things. But, so I was never really a sports kid. But I skateboarded, I snowboarded, I rode the bike, I played tennis, I played some things, I mean, I had a very normal childhood. And my parents would always, would always would never focus on what I couldn't do, would always focus when I could do. So it wasn't like, no, 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 you can't do that. You have a thing in your head. You have this condition. You have this device. It was more, football. You know what? Let's try tennis. Let's try band. Let's play the clarinet. Let's try choir, and they would just kind of gently nudge me in other directions and encourage me in things instead of focusing on the condition, they helped me focus on what I could do in spite of it.
Well, it sounds like your parents definitely did it right. No
They're
question
pretty awesome.
about it.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
question. Now, you said hydrocephalus is very common. How common is it?
It is ridiculously common. There are about one out of 18, it's one out of every 800, roughly one out of every 800 babies born in the US is born with it. So that if you multiply that out, it's right around 420 something thousand, right about 420. Every single year, 400 and something thousand babies are born with it. And you can acquire it at any time in life if you get a good enough bump on the head that compromises the flow of that fluid, or you get a case of spinal meningitis that gets out of hand, or you get some sort of brain injury. It can be acquired at any time. Not trying to scare anybody, but I'm just saying it's that common. Every 15 minutes in the United States, somebody is undergoing brain surgery to treat hydrocephalus. So it's pretty common.
Wow, yeah, that's very common. I really had no idea. So then what inspired you to create Hydro with Hope?
Well, we were in the doctor's office following one of the four brain surgeries I've had since 2014. It was in March of 18. It was about probably May of 2018. I had the surgery in March, and I was there for a follow up. And Catherine, my wife, and I were sitting in the little room waiting for the surgeon to come in to tell us about the CT scan results and everything. And I just overheard this conversation in the next room. You couldn't hear the words, but you could hear the tone, right? In those medical offices, the walls aren't real thick. So you can't really hear what they're saying. You can hear how they're saying it though.
Right.
And it sounded distraught. They sounded like, it just sounded like there was angst in the room. And I thought to myself, Catherine, I looked at each other and said, "Oh man, I wonder if they're finding out that their baby's going to have that first brain surgery. I wonder if they're finding out that they have to have another one, or maybe, and that flashed me back to when my parents, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when they found out at 2 weeks old that I was going to have to brain surgery. I can't imagine. And so I said, "Oh man, we gotta do something. God's got me on this planet for a reason, and this might be it. So let's see what we can do." So we started that kind of just the infant stages of formulating what we thought it might look like. And a couple years later, we landed on Hydro with Hope as a name, and landed on that we were going to be kind of the boots on the ground, practical help for families. Not the There are so many wonderful organizations, local and national organizations out there in this country and around the world that are doing wonderful things with fundraising and device research and making the better shunt better, and all the things. We're like, no, that's not my bag. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that wants to hug the family and answer their questions and spend time with them. So we decided to go that route. And so Um, Hydro with Hope, we published a journal called My Hydro Warrior Story that is a 150-page journal that is a fill in the blank journal that walks people through from that first moment of, wow, what kind of surgery are we having? you know, through the doctor's visits and through the medical record keeping and all the things. And then you just take that book with you to your next appointment and you've got everything written down. You don't have to wonder what you're going to say when they start asking you questions. And I also love to speak on that subject and speak on the fact that life does not end when brain surgery comes up. There can be success. And so I love to speak. If anybody, I love to speak in front of groups of any size, really. And then we are developing, as we speak, a community, an online community, kind of a paid membership type thing, where we'll have a couple Zoom calls a month where people can come and with any condition, not just hydrocephalus, any condition that they're worried about and like not sure what to do, and we can talk them off the ledge, so to speak, and answer some questions and see where we need to direct them for help and that kind of thing. We just want to help. We want to offer practical help, and that's where I feel like that's the niche we're in right now.
Well, I think that's wonderful. And it sounds like very, very, very much needed. So you just kind of touched on the fact that you're expanding beyond just the condition of hydrocephalus with the work that you're doing. How about the show Invisible Condition? Is that what kind of prompted you to create that, or was it something else?
We were at a conference promoting Hydro with Hope a couple of years ago, and we were introduced by somebody at that conference that was a mutual friend. We were introduced to the network president of Achieve TV, which is a channel on an online cable network called E360 TV, and it's a worldwide cable network. It's amazing. It's such a cool thing. And so she said, well, tell me your story. Why did they introduce us? And so I started telling her my story about, hydrocephalus and the nonprofit. And she's like, whoa, when you're not used to it, when it's your story, it doesn't sound extraordinary, because you lived with it your whole life. I've got 47 years in on this. I've been doing this a while. It's just business as usual for me. But when you tell somebody you've had 7 brain surgeries, that they sit up a little straighter and go, tell me more about that. So we launched our TV show April 4th of 2023. And you were a guest on that show. It was amazing. You were awesome. And we bring on people. We're on twice a week. We're every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on E360 TV, and we're on the Achieve TV channel. So and it's an online platform, so you can access it online or through an app on your phone, and then you just find the Achieve TV channel, find our show, and you're off and running. But we're on every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and we bring people on the show that are living and yet thriving, despite having a condition you can't see from the outside, because hydrocephalus is something you would never watch me walking down the street and go, yep, I can tell what he's got. You never know. Down syndrome is not an invisible condition, right? You can see somebody, there's something visual happening with Down syndrome, with amputees, right? You can see there's a limit with there's so many conditions out there that you can't tell that people are living with it until they tell you. And so that's who we bring on, people that are living and yet thriving, didn't let it stop them. Maybe they have fibromyalgia, maybe they have schizophrenia, maybe they have ADHD, maybe they have lupus or something, but they didn't let them stop them, and they're speaking, or they wrote a book, or they've got a TV show of their own, or they've got a podcast, or companies out there that are helping those people live better lives with those invisible conditions. Those are all people that we love having on the show, and we've had a year's worth of incredible guests telling their story, and it's just been awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my experience was wonderful, and it sounds like, such a wonderful repository of positive, motivating, inspirational stories and information,
Yeah.
and really the perspective that you take when you are dealing with that kind of a challenge is really more than half the battle, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about, you know, believing that, you can and you will and you are going to
Yeah.
thrive and you are going to overcome, right?
100%. Well, and the cool little side benefit of this that I didn't even see coming is we're what 100 and I don't know 130 140 episodes in at this point, and looking back at the record of all the people that have been on the show and all the companies that have been on the show and all the resources that we've been able to share on the show, that has almost made this online membership community a no-brainer, because now people can come and they can ask questions, and I can point them in the direction of resources, and I can introduce them to people that can help them, and I can, and we can, they can have a place for their voice to be heard and just to be listened to, and it's so cool. And that's something I didn't even see coming, but looking back, we're like, wow, that worked out really well. So yeah, it's been so cool.
So let me ask you something then. What is the biggest takeaway you would like our listeners to recall from our conversation today?
Oh wow. Well, I you know what, I'm gonna grab our journal here and read you something real quick, just real short out of
Oh,
it, that
it's
kind of
good.
encapsulates what I like to leave people with. So I'm gonna preface this with, I'm a Christian. My family, we're Christians. We're Jesus followers. We believe the Bible. We believe that there's no such thing as accidental encounters. God is lining things up left and right. It's He is in control. And so in the there's a section in the book, a short couple pages that says about Jeff, just to like, hey, who is this guy? Why does he write a journal? What's his deal? And so there's a little section in here about that. And my parents wrote the foreword for the journal, which I'm pretty excited about. So, but this little section kind of encapsulates my experience with this whole thing, especially in the last 10 years, because you don't really know, you're not, until you're really tested, you don't really know what kind of man, what kind of woman, what kind of person you are until you're tested, and the last 10 years has tested us. We've had 6 surgeries, 4 brain surgeries, all kinds of fun. So this kind of sums it up. It says, having lived with hydrocephalus for over 45 years, I can say 3 things, 100% certainty. Number one, God is faithful all the time. Number two, God is in control, and that is a good thing. And number three, life does not have to be perfect to be amazing. So that last one is pretty much sums it all up. It's please don't wait for life to be perfect. It's never going to be, especially if you have a condition that makes life interesting. don't don't get down on it. Don't get upset. Just you, God doesn't make mistakes. You've got it for a reason. What good can you do with it? What can you do to help others with that? So
Very wise words. And thank you for sharing that, Jeff.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been, I credit my parents for a lot of that, because there was a time in the hospital in 2014 that I was in there for 3 weeks, and I thought it would never end. And I started getting a little cranky with the nurses and stuff, because I was like, when are we going to get the surgery done? When are we going to do this so I can get out of here? And my dad kind of called me on the carpet and said, look, these people are here to help you. So suck it up. And if you have to be here for 3 weeks, you're here for 3 weeks. If you have to be here for 3 months, you're here for 3 months. They have your best interest in mind. Act like it, and he kind of called me on the carpet for it. And so by the end of that visit, through his inspiration, I wrote down every one of those nurses and doctors and PAs and people that changed the sheets and people that brought me my food and people that took me on walks, all the things. I wrote every single one of their names down. And then the day I left the hospital, I wrote every single name on the whiteboard and put a big, wrote thank you real big across it, and wrote every single one of their names on it, because my dad inspired me to do that. It was like, it wasn't anything. I mean, it's nothing special about me. It was the point, the lesson is, my dad kind of drove that home. And it was like, you're here for a reason and they're here to help you. And that would go for anybody that's dealing with a condition, whether it's physical, mental, in the hospital, out of the hospital. If there's things happening, it's for a reason. So don't get frustrated, don't get upset. It's for your good, so.
That's a beautiful story. And yeah, I agree with you. The expression of gratitude is something that is very, very important.
Yeah.
And
Important for everybody. I mean, it helps the person you're thanking, but it helps you too.
absolutely.
Helps your attitude stay in the right place. Your attitude's literally the only thing you have 100% control over, in life. I mean, that's it. What happens to you is not always under your control, but how you respond to it is. So
100%. Yep. Well, thank you again, Jeff, for your time and for sharing your story with us today.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's been awesome. And if anybody, if any with the show, if anybody that would fit the description of a really cool guest, I mean, I love meeting more people that are living amazing lives in the midst of these conditions, and it's just awesome. I cannot believe I get to do this for a living, So if anybody knows of anybody that could be on the show that would want to be on the show, just let me know. Let me know. Gilda, you've got my info. It'll be in whatever, attached to this broadcast. Just reach out. I'd love to meet them. So
Thanks, Jeff.
you bet.
And if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast. You can find it on Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other popular platforms. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would like more information on this topic or anything else we've covered on the Autism Resource Podcast, visit us online at autismresourceproject.org/podcast. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover in the future, contact us through the website or comment on any of our social media channels. And be sure to check out our growing website often, since we are continually adding useful information and resources. I want to thank our listeners for spending part of their day with us. This is the Autism Resource Podcast, and I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.